I remember being in a mastermind, my first ever mastermind that I enrolled in. And one of the things they kept speaking about is who is the person you have to become in order to get to that next level. So if your goal is Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I am your host, Krista Gurka, and today's episode is an episode that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm going to be talking all about mental health as a business owner and how being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, affects your mental health, how your mental health and self-awareness affects your ability to be a leader and a business owner. And so I have I've been very transparent over the years, I believe, in my journey through my own mental health. I don't want to call them issues, like just basically my mental health journey. And so today I'm going to talk about that. Like, really, that's what we're going to talk about through the whole episode. So I've always loved this quote by Jim Rohn. It's your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become. I'm going to say it again because I think this one's just amazing. Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become. I remember being in a mastermind, my first ever mastermind that I enrolled in. And one of the things they kept speaking about is who is the person you have to become in order to get to that next level. So if your goal is to be a seven-figure CEO, then you have to start thinking, acting, behaving as a seven-figure CEO. So an example of that would be if you're trying to figure out if you want to invest in a $19 subscription that's going to make your life easier, would a seven-figure CEO be worried about that investment? No, they would just make the decision and move on. All right. So it really is important. And their model in that mastermind was be, do, have. Okay. So you have to be the person. You have to think, act, be the person. Then you have to do the work, and then you have the results. Okay. So most people think it's opposite. Most people think it's like have the skill set, do the work, become the person. No, you have to be the person first. And this is a whole thing of how business will not affect your personal self-worth. I am an entire person being, that is entirely independent of my business. And so one of the things that precipitated my really starting to go to therapy was, maybe it was like a midlife crisis or a nervous breakdown. I don't know, but I was just unhappy. I was miserable. I was very withdrawn. I would like go home and go right to my room. I really didn't want to talk to anyone. And really, I thought that I was putting on a really great act until one of my closest friends said, what's wrong with you? You're not yourself. And I thought, what do you mean I'm not myself? I thought I was like pushing all of that stuff down. But I do remember at one point, like writing my husband a letter and just being like, I don't even know who this person is. I feel like a shell of myself. And I don't want to be this anymore. I work hard, but I'm not happy. I'm not being a good mom to the kids. I'm not being a good wife to you. I'm not being a good daughter. I'm not being a good person to myself. So that's when I decided I'm going to start therapy. And I went through a couple therapists before I found the one that I'm still going to today. So that was, let's see, my son was in sixth grade, I believe. So what's that? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So like 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. So, and I still go, at least once a month. And it has helped me in ways that I never, ever, ever thought possible. All right. One of the things that I told my therapist at the beginning, it was kind of like the same thing I said to my husband when I'm like, I feel like I'm a shell of myself. I was like, I feel like I'm a in jail. Like, you know how in jail they have those, when you go to visit people, they have these like thick panes of glass. So I was like, I feel like I'm behind this pane of glass and I can see myself on the other side and I'm happy and I feel it, right? But in order to get there, I'd have to run through this thick pane of glass, and either I'm not going to break it or I am, and I'm going to be bloody and bruised and everything like that. And so one of the things she said to me, she said, which is why I was like, I know that this is the right one. She said, what if we chip away at the glass piece by piece instead of having you run fully through it? And that really resonated with me. Like, I don't have to do everything at once. I can do it little by little, right? And what going to therapy did, it helped me recognize certain patterns, certain habits, and how they affected how I showed up in social situations, in business situations, and personal situations. And so it really helped me gain a tremendous amount of self-awareness, and I always thought I was a pretty self-aware person before, but I was like, holy shit, I'm a disaster. It really affected my ability to realize that I am worthy of everything that I want in my life. It really helped me realize how to tame my emotions, why I got emotional about certain things, and how to handle relationships, interactions, and crises really better. And it's amazing because I work, obviously I work in human movement, right? And one of the things I teach my patients and clients is that we can change our movement patterns. We all have movement patterns that we were born with, and they never really leave our brain and our nervous system. But what they sometimes do is, like, we have all these other patterns that we've created over our life, and then some of the original patterns, the good ones, they kind of get buried in a library, and you just have to like peel through all the books to get it out again. And but when I thought about therapy was, oh, I'm just going to always have to think, like, don't get upset at this thing, don't cry, don't yell, don't do whatever. And the more I started doing the work, and the more I started talking, and the more I started unpacking the big, huge onion that is the shell that I had put over myself for years and years and years, the more I realized, oh no, these are just the same thing. With repetition and with learning how to calm my nervous system and how to not take things personally and how to see things as outside myself, it really, sometimes I look at things, and things that used to would irritate me and make me blow up before doesn't anymore. All right. So like that is the reason that I went to therapy. Now, what I want to talk about is a little bit about how that helped me in my business life. Okay. So one of the things that I was able to start to uncover and understand in therapy was that as most people that I work with in that are entrepreneurs and businesses, I am a high achiever. I used to say I'm an overachiever, and somebody said, you're not an overachiever, you're a high achiever. Nobody overachieves, you're a high achiever. I was a perfectionist. I still am a little bit. But what I realized was where that all was coming from. And what that was coming from was me needing outside validation to make me feel worthy. So I've told this story before, getting to $1 million in my business, I really thought everything was going to change. Oh my gosh, I'm a millionaire. I have $1 million of assets. And if anything, it got worse. I felt worse. I was like, oh, now I have all this pressure to keep it, because if I don't, what does that mean about me? If I don't do well, I'm a failure. People are going to think I'm a fraud. People are going to know I'm a fraud. People are going to know I don't know what I'm talking about. And so being a high achiever and being a perfectionist was really coming from a fear of being unwanted or not being validated. And so one of the things that I've worked through therapy is like, no outcome is going to make me feel better. No outcome is going to make me feel like a different person. I have to feel that within myself and understand and know that. So one of the ways that that used to show up in my business was that if an employee would leave or resign or go somewhere else, I took that as like, I am not a boss and they are doing that to me, meaning like, they are taking from me of which I cannot get back. So I would take it very personally. Whereas what I've learned throughout these last couple of years is they are coming to this with their own experiences, right? With their own goals and achievements. And so they're not leaving me, they're just moving on. And so now instead of being bitter about like, oh my gosh, they're leaving and how ungrateful. And I know a lot of your business owners out there have felt that before, how ungrateful they're going to leave. And they're going to, now I just think that's unfortunate. I wish they weren't leaving, although some people I'm like, yeah, good. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. And I'm really grateful that I had a small part in your entrepreneurial journey or your career or anything. And, you know, thank you for your service. And what can I learn to do better next time? Okay. Another thing would be like if a client said no to me, you know, and I know all of you business owners out there go through this same thing. You're trying to sell a package or a service or something. And they're like, I don't know, I'll get back to you. And a lot of you feel like that's you. They're saying personally. And so what do? We cut our cost, we drop the price, or we give them something for free. But really what they're saying no to is they're just saying no to that service right now. All right. It's not to you. Okay. It's not. So I use this example all the time. If you're at a party or you're hosting a party and you walk around and you're like, oh, would you like a pigs in a blanket? And someone says, no, you're not going to be like, fuck you, man. Like, that's so rude and feel terrible. You're just be like, okay. And maybe you come back around later and they say yes. And so that's how it happens. Okay. Another thing that really helped me in business was I really came from a place of what I learned growing up was that money was finite. Okay. And people that had money had more because they were greedy and they were taking away from people that did not have money. And whether that was really taught to me or that's what I interpreted, that's how I felt. And right. So like when I would have to ask somebody for, oh, it's $100 for a session, I felt like they were taking from this like little mason jar of that's all they had. And so if they were giving $100 to me, they were no longer having it. So how selfish of me to ask somebody for money for what they need. Again, what I've learned and when I've come to reconcile is that money will come back to them, and maybe not in money, but maybe in terms of they give you $100 for that service. You provide an amazing service, physical therapy or movement. They feel better. They're able to go out and maybe train for a marathon, in which case they meet their partner that they're going to spend the rest of their life with. Now, I mean, that's a far-fetched story, but anyways, that's how it happens. It's the value that goes around. So when I invest in a mastermind for myself, yes, I'm paying $9, $10, $12, $15,000. And I understand that that's going to come back to me, whether that be an actual ROI, like I learn a business metric that increases revenue into my business, or in some way that it gives me back some time, or that it makes my life easier so I can spend more time with my children. Okay. I want to say back in the old days, but not even in the old days, some societies still now, it's you trade goods, right? So if I have a skill set and I'm a farmer and I grow bananas and another farmer grows avocados, I'll trade him bananas for avocados. Okay. It's the same thing, right? Our currency just happens to be money a lot of times. But if we take out the thought of like, I'm taking from someone that can never get back, it's really just an exchange of goods. I'm providing a service and they're giving me something for that service. So that really also helped me when people would be like, oh, I have to think about it or no. I'd be like, okay, I heard someone say one time that no means next opportunity, right? So next opportunity, they come back around. And so I also feel very confident in my skill set. They're not saying no to me. They're just saying no to this service right now. And then either I have to do two things. Either I have to get better at articulating the value that I can provide, right? Or I have to find other people that actually value what I am providing. Because if I have bananas to give away, but a banana farmer is not going to value the bananas, right? I have to find an avocado farmer that's going to value bananas because they don't have bananas. They only have avocados, right? So that is another thing that really, really helped me. That was a real pivotal moment in therapy when I reconciled around how my money issues and my money mindset and why I was so, hated having the conversation. The other thing was, this was definitely something that I was brought up. I'm from a Cuban culture. I've talked about that a lot before. Latin culture, you did not talk about money. Like, you did not talk about money. You did not talk about how much you made. You did not ask someone. You did not talk about how much your house was. You did not talk about any of that. So like, for so long, I had this visceral reaction about people talking about money. So if I had to say to someone, oh, this is $125 or $250, or now our inner circle mastermind, $10,000, I would have this like visceral reaction around it. So that's another thing. If you're from a culture or household that's like, do not talk about money, those are things that you have to, overcome and override, and you can override them. All right. I am a big believer that women don't talk about their achievements very much. That's why I do come on and I say, I generate over $1 million in revenue every year in my business. So I have generated 8 figures in my business. I think this year we're going to push us over $13 million. Okay. There's not a lot of men in the space that have done that. There's not a lot of male coaches out there that are coaching business owners on how to get that have hit that mark. Okay. And they're not the ones home taking care of the kids. Most of them, and again, generalization, so there could be some out there, but most of them are not the primary parent. I am a 7-figure business owner and am the primary parent. All right. So I want to be that example for other women to hear. Yeah, I generate a nice high 6-figure salary, and I generate over $1 million every year in my business, and I am the primary parent. Okay. Does that make me a millionaire? Yes. And even saying that right now, because of everything that I was growing up, and like, I was really taught that like, people that had money had it and they were greedy, so that people that didn't have money had less. All right. So what do I do with my money? I donate a lot to charity and organizations that are near and dear to my heart. I give back, right? I put into savings for later. I put in a savings to help pay for my children for college. And now I'm really intentional about putting into savings for retirement, because no one's funding that. And there's no scholarships for retirement. That would be great. Wouldn't there financial aid for retirement, scholarships for retirement? But there's not. All right. So now some of the things that I really, really use in my everyday life are some of the things that I've learned in therapy, of which I am not responsible for another adult's emotional reaction. How does this help me in business? When I have to have challenging or difficult conversations, my responsibility is to be clear and kind. I'm not responsible for someone else's emotional reaction. And so what I used to do was, because I was such a people pleaser, and I couldn't be in control of someone else's emotions. And because I couldn't be in control, I got very uncomfortable in a situation that could evoke an emotion that I wasn't comfortable with. And so I would really push off uncomfortable conversations. I did not want to be confrontational. I did not want to have these, giving feedback was really challenging and difficult for me. So I would just sweep it under the rug. And basically that's how I was brought up too. You don't talk about feelings, you just sweep them under the rug, push them down, bury them. Do not talk about them, right? So one of the things I've learned now is just be clear and kind. So if I have to bring something to someone's attention and they start crying, I can hold space for them to be upset, but I'm not going to take that on me and say, well, they're upset about me, I'm a bad person. No, they unfortunately have been late to work 5 times in the last month, and I have to bring that to their attention, right? That doesn't mean that I can't hold space if they're upset about something personal going on in their life, but I'm not going to take that on me that I'm a bad person by bringing this to their, to their attention. So that is one thing that I really use daily that's really, really helped me. The other thing is, I am, again, like I talked about, my own entity aside from my failure and success. So if Pilates and the Grows does great, which is doing great, that is a That's all of us involved in it. And if it fails, it doesn't mean that I'm a failure is an action, not an identity. It is, it's not who you are, it's something that happened. Okay. And so I've been able to come to work, to my career, to personal situations, and really learn how to have better interpersonal relationships. Now, I'm still working on, I do tend, I'm not able to hide my emotions from my face very often. And I also am working on my tone and my delivery of certain things. Because listen, I'm going to be perfectly honest. There is a part of me, this high achiever founder mentality that's just like, do it, stop fucking complaining about it, and be done with it. And like, don't bother me. I'll be honest. That's what I want my reaction to be, but that's not fair to the other person. Okay. So that is something, one of the other things that I've been working on with therapy, and like, why does that irritate me? And if I need to take time to rest, then I can do that as well. Another thing that I've learned about therapy, and which it's really surprised me because I tend to be quieter, but that's why I think the podcast is good, is I'm a verbal processor. So I process things verbally. So one of the things that therapy has helped me with, and I tell my therapist this, I was like, you're my gossip board. Like, I feel like I can come to you and say everything that's inappropriate for me to say. Like when I want to be like, just do your fucking job. Please stop bothering me. It's just as when I say it and there's no judgment there, she's not judging me about anything, then I feel better. Right. And that's why talk therapy sometimes works. Right. I've also done some EMDR, which I actually have an appointment today to do another EMDR session to go back and, see if I can relive some of these memories of like emotions that I've built up that need to, be resolved or come to the surface, or understand why I feel that way. Why do certain things irritate me? Right? Why does it irritate me when people want to take 4 weeks vacation? Why does it irritate me when people say no to things? I don't know, because I'm a people pleaser and I say yes to everything. And so it's just off for me. Okay. But I realize I'm starting to unpack why those things are, and come to terms with like how to better navigate the world so that I don't walk around with this bitter chip on my shoulder. And I have had tremendous success in the last several years. And so now I don't go weekly anymore, but I do go once a month because it just helps me to talk about things like, life has its challenges. I feel like I'm a much calmer person. I feel that I can see things outside of myself. I'm not as afraid of emotion as I used to be. I used to say this all the time, that I'd rather stab myself in the face with a fork than be vulnerable or talk about emotion to people. And now it's just an emotion. It's a feeling, it's a thought that maybe becomes a feeling. And how can I sit in it for a while rather than run away from it, and rather than numb it with all these other things? So, it's really, really helped me tremendously to gain a level of self-awareness so that I can be a better leader, so that I can step into the role of, understanding other people, and being okay when I say, like, listen, it just isn't going to work for us. And I don't feel bad about it. Right? Because I've been clear in my expectations. And if it's not going to work out, it's okay. That goes with friendship. Okay. It's a lot harder to do with family members, but, you know, working on, you will only grow to the level of your personal development. If you cannot see how much resentment and bitterness and anger you're holding into yourself, if you cannot see that and you cannot see how that's affecting some of your decisions, you won't be able to move past a certain point. And so, reading books, understanding things that have resonated, that irk me, or things that I'm good at, and why am I good at that, and it's not seeing things as failures or weaknesses, just seeing things like, if I turn up, in Strength Fighters they talk about, if you dial up your strengths a little too much, they can become weaknesses, right? And so how can I vacillate between both of these things to be as neutral as possible? All right. So that's just a little bit about my journey through mental health counseling. I've also been super transparent about the fact that at some point during my journey, through a psychiatrist and several testing, we decided to put myself on medication. So I take Cymbalta, basically Cymbalta, 60 milligrams once a day. It really helps with my anxiety and my ruminating thoughts. And that used to be another thing. Like somebody would say, "Oh, I need to, hey, can I have a meeting with you?" And then the first thing my mind would go to is, "Oh, they're leaving and they're taking all the clients with them, and they're opening up a space right next door." Or my kids would be like, "Oh, I got, the school's calling me." And the first thing would be like, my kid punched someone in the face and sent them to the hospital, and now they're going to get expelled. And, my therapist would be like, "That's the first thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, isn't that what everyone's first thing is?" And she's like, "No, not really. Like, that's possible, but is that real? Is that really what's going to happen?" So that has been, helpful to help me calm those ruminating thoughts. Cold plunging, I've been cold plunging a lot lately. That's been great. Anything just to kind of like reset my nervous system, and then articulating those feelings when I'm not in a good mood, or if my kids, or my son's like, wants to play or wrestle, and I'm like, "You know what, I'm not upset at you, but I'm feeling like a little bit overstimulated and I don't want to yell at you. So I'd rather just not do that right now." Or if they're like, "Mom, why are you so triggered?" And I'm like, "You know what? I know I'm acting triggered. I just had a rough day, or I'm really tired," or something like that. And so I'm better able to articulate what I'm feeling versus just being like, "Shut the fuck up, stop doing things." And so it's helped me not yell as much. It's helped me be able to like have regular conversations with people, laugh again. And so it's just been a great journey for me. So thank you guys for listening to this. If you have any questions or anything and you want to DM me about any type of like this therapy that I've done or medication that I'm on, I went through a few of them before we found the right one. You can DM me over on Instagram. Share your stories if you'd like. Screenshot listening to this podcast, hashtag mental health matters. And until next time, my friends, stay strong. Bye for now.